Hello, everyone. We continue the second day of Peralta Online Equity Conference with wonderful presenters and engaging discussions. I would like to thank everyone in the audience, first of all, for keeping the conversation going in the chat. And we certainly feel your enthusiasm for equity, which is wonderful. I'm excited to introduce the next presenter from Davidson Davie Community College and North Carolina Student Success Center, Keisha Jones, who will be talking about finding the starting point, navigating DEI initiatives with intention. Before we start, I would like to remind you that you can use the Zoom captioning feature by using the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. You can turn it on and off as you wish. And also, please use the chat box for your questions. As the moderator of this session, I will share your questions with the presenter at the end of the presentation. Also, please subscribe our YouTube channel for having access to the videos, including this recording and the recordings from the previous years. So if you're all ready, let's turn to our presenter for her speech. Keisha.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're located. If you were here yesterday, welcome back. That means I did a really good job and you wanted to hear me again, but you might do an activity that you did yesterday, but you'll just be doing it again, but with new people. So today I'm going to be talking about how do you begin to have the conversation on your campus or within your organization to do this work, right? We know it's important. We know things need to change, but like how do I begin to initiate that and start that? So as mentioned, I am Keisha Jones, and I have two jobs. I probably have more than two jobs. Everybody says I have about 4 or 5 jobs, but I have 2 primary jobs. And the first is my primary role is with Davidson Davie Community College. I serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer. So in that role, I lead student services, and I also lead our equity initiatives on our campus. I've been in higher ed, that says 19, but it will be 20 years in August. I've worked in 2-year and 4-year institutions. I've been in leadership roles majority of the time that I have been in higher education. I put 15 years, but I'm going to say I probably have been doing DEIB type of work for the whole time, because it used to be called Ethnic Concerns 20 years ago when I was a part of another organization. That's kind of what they called it, and I was a part of that committee. But I also have adjuncted and done multiple things from an industry perspective. I do have a consulting business where I work a lot with nonprofits. Like now I'm doing a community needs assessment to help a nonprofit build relationships with communities of color. And so I love doing things like this. So that's a little bit about me. But today, a lot of the focus is going to be on the work that I do here at Davidson from an equity perspective, and then the work that I do from the system. Because in addition to my role at Davidson Davie, I also serve as the Director of Equity with the North Carolina Community College System under the Student Success umbrella, where I provide diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging support to all 58 community colleges in North Carolina. That is a big scope of things that I'll kind of go over. But that's a little bit about me and kind of the background that I bring to the conversation. And thinking about our goals today and thinking about what we're trying to accomplish, or what I hope we accomplish, is really that we engage in self-reflection, that we're able to utilize some of the tools and resources to enhance what you're currently doing, explore opportunities for growth within your current structure and how you currently do your work, and then identify ways that you can take what you've heard and implement it into your organization. My hope is that the strategies and things that I provide are things that you can see that you can implement in your spaces. But before we do that, there is a game that I play in all of my workshops and in a lot of things that I do, and it is the Culture Wheel game, and it is basically diversity, equity, and inclusion in action. And it gives us an opportunity to get to know each other. And because we are in a space where we have people from all across the world, it will be amazing for us to make some connections with people that we don't know and that we don't talk to on a regular basis. So with the breakout group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to does not let me add an attachment. I don't have the right to add an attachment to the chat for me to put the instructions, but if you can take a screenshot or a picture of the instructions, since I can't put the document in the chat, basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put you in the breakout room. You're gonna meet, introduce yourself to your partner. You all are gonna answer those questions. You don't have to answer all three of them. You can pick one of them and just have a dialogue, because I'm not gonna give you a lot of time. I'm probably gonna give you about 6 minutes to do that. But if you could take a screenshot and basically you're gonna talk about, what are foods that are part of your culture or traditional dishes, or you could talk about different traditions you may have, or words or phrases. So I am going to put you in rooms now. Thank you, Kevin. And you should be getting notifications to go into your breakout rooms. If you haven't gotten your notification, let me know.
Hello.
Sorry.
Hey, oh, hey, yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm taking my freedom, pulling it off the shelf, putting it on my chain, wearing it around my neck. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my car, wherever I choose to go. It won't take me far. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's 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 golden, golden. I'm taking my own freedom, putting it in my song, singing loud and strong, grooving all day long. I'm
Hi, for those that are just now joining us, they are currently in breakout groups. I'm not going to put you in a breakout room because they are closing in about a minute. But they're doing the activity that is in the chat. So again, for those that are just now joining, their other participants are currently doing an activity. But I'm not going to put you all into the activity because it is closing in a little bit over a minute. But the activity that they are doing is in the chat to kind of give you an idea of what is being discussed. All righty, everybody is starting to come back from their breakout rooms. Give folks a little bit more time. I assume you all enjoyed your conversations with people. Did you enjoy getting to know some people that you've never met before?
Absolutely.
So as I mentioned, this is an activity that I do at a lot of PD that I do related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some of the things that I do on my campus. We have what we call equity champions, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But it's a great way to get to know people. Like when we think about how we take time to get to know people, a lot of times, depending on the circumstance and the situation, is very surface level. Hi, my name is Keisha. I work at Davidson Davy. My title is this, my role is this, and then we kind of go on about our business. What this allows you to do is to learn people on a deeper level, so you get to a place of better understand what makes that person them, right? What are the things that drive who they are? How do they think about, why they think about things the way that they think about, or what perspective they have? The deeper we know someone, the more we can understand their perspectives and have empathy and understand, oh, that's why she may feel this way, or he or they may feel this way. So this is an activity that I try to do to get that conversation to occur in a different way. But now let's jump into the presentation. So one of the things that I want you all to think about, and just think about your work, you know, when you're thinking about adopting an equity mindset, it really involves critical self-reflection and openness to learning from mistakes, and then, you know, ultimately holding ourselves and each other accountable to do better, right? So the things that I want you to think about from a perspective of your institution, and as we have this conversation today, is what are you trying to achieve with your DEIB efforts on your campus? You know, how does your college currently address DEIB? How does your organization define these terms? Do they define these terms, right? And if they do define the terms, does everybody know the definition of the terms? Is everybody aware of what they mean? And not just what they mean, but what does it look like in action? What does diversity look like in action for your campus? What does equity look like in action? What does inclusion look like in action? And I add belonging because belonging and creating a sense of belonging actually starts from the point that somebody is interested in your institution. So that can be from a billboard, that can be in the community, that can be a shirt that someone has on out in the community, right? And so a lot of times we leave belonging out, whereas that is something that should be heavily embedded in what we're doing, and that in the things that we're doing, we're not only creating environments where people feel included, but also that they feel like they belong. So understanding what these terms mean for your institution and what do they look like in action. A lot of times we try to create these fancy, nice, long definitions that nobody really knows what you're talking about or what you mean by what you're talking about. And my recommendation is don't do that. There are some great definitions out there about what diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging is. Go and find the ones that are as simplistic as possible that you can articulate and communicate to your campus, and that you can be able to say, this is what it looks like in action, right? And your definition should really be centered around outcomes and not your intentions of what do you intend to do. The other piece when you're thinking about this is make sure that it's about all stakeholders. I know we are institutions of higher education and our goal is about student success and all of those things, but as a faculty or staff person, if I don't feel a sense of belonging, if I don't feel included in my spaces, I cannot create that for somebody else if I don't feel it myself, right? And so make sure that when you're doing this and you're thinking about the work, that you're not thinking about it just through the lens of a student, that you're thinking about it from the lens of any stakeholder that engages in your institution, right? So that's just some questions I want you to kind of ponder as we're going through this session. Now, early case studies show that even well-resourced diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging initiatives fail if executed poorly. It's the right thing to do isn't always sufficient. And especially in 2024 is not enough to get people to understand and to buy in. So just saying that we're going to do this and putting some money behind some professional development or behind some cultural awareness events isn't what diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging is, right? I live in the state of North Carolina and we have some legislation that, impacts. I'm not going to say it necessarily impacts our ability to utilize terms and do the work, but it is really focused on what we offer in professional learning. And many people in North Carolina feel like, hey, you can't do anything. And the reason for that is because we get caught up in that diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging work is professional learning sessions and cultural awareness events. That is not what this work is. Those are components of the work. Those are how you educate people. That is how you bring people into spaces and build cultural competence. But that's not in essence what the work is. The work is more intentional. It's more strategic. It should be embedded in the fabric of your institution. It should be a part of everything that you do, from the furniture that you buy to the technology that you implement. Equity should be integrated in all of that. And that perspective goes beyond professional learning and cultural awareness events, right? But that's where many of us hang our hats when we think about this work and how we do this work. So let me talk to you a little bit about my context. So I told you that I have multiple jobs. So one of them is with the North Carolina Community College System Office. In North Carolina, we have 58 community colleges and we have a Student Success Center. We have 100 counties in North Carolina, and within every county, there's a community college within 30-minute drive of where a North Carolina resident may live. And so in thinking about the work that I do and kind of my context of how to, from a system perspective, do this work, my job as the equity director is under the North Carolina Student Success Center. And my role is to kind of provide some foundational knowledge for the institutions in North Carolina. So I do a lot of retreats. I do a lot of professional development. I do needs assessments where I go to campuses and I kind of assess their current processes and then provide recommendations on how they could potentially improve. I host the Equity Coach Academy where I train people across the state on how to do this work on their campus. And then they also are hired to assist me in the work that I do on the campus. So that's a part of where my context comes from when I talk to you about kind of how to implement things. The other thing is the college that I work at. I work at Davis and Davie Community College. We serve about 13,000 students when we think about curriculum, continuing ed, adult high school. It is in a rural community. We service 2 counties. Sorry, I've been talking all day. We service 2 counties. And equity is very much embedded in our strategic plan. The same thing happened yesterday at this time, but it's embedded in our strategic plan. We do not have an equity goal. Equity is streamed through all 4 of our goals. And the reason for that is it allows us to be able to demonstrate to everybody on campus that equity is a part of their job, no matter what seat they sit in. With our institution, we do have what I would call a structure, but it's not its own division or department. So we have myself as the Chief Diversity Officer, and then we have the Equity Steering Committee. I apologize. The Equity Steering Committee is comprised of faculty, staff, and leadership. And when I say leadership, I mean senior leadership. So people from President's Council. I co-chair that with the CFO of the college. And basically what this image is, it is how we articulate to our campus that equity is a part of everybody's job. So EC is our equity champions. CTL is our Center for Teaching and Learning. SALT is our Student Affairs Leadership Team. Then we have HR. Then we have Institutional Research, Academic Leadership Team. And so what we try to do and what we try to communicate to our campus is that as a campus, we have an institutional why. We have indicated why this work is important, and we try to make sure that we are communicating that on a regular basis. And I'm going to talk about the why in a minute, but when we have our opening sessions or other sessions with campus, we always try to make sure that everybody understands why we are doing this work. We talk to them about our structure. We identify institutional goals. And the idea is that all of these areas, no matter what you are doing, you should be trying to tie back to the goals that we've identified for the year. So that's kind of how we do our work here at Davidson. So I'm gonna dig a little bit more into the how. So in thinking about how you should start processing this on your campus, this is a list, and I'm not gonna stay on this page long, but this is kind of a list of how you should really begin thinking about this and having these conversations on your campus. The very first thing that you should do is know why you're doing what you're doing. Saying that it's the right thing to do or we should be doing it isn't sufficient, right? People want to know why. If we think about the way we operate and the way that we do things on our campuses, a lot of times we don't spend a lot of time talking about why we're doing what we're doing. We spend more time on the how we're going to do it, what we're going to do it, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, who's involved, when it has to be implemented. But if you think about people and how we process things and how we decide what we're going to go for and what we're not going to go for, is we want to know why. Like, if we've been operating the way that we've been operating for as long as we have, why now do you feel like we need to be doing something different? I have great success in my classroom, or we've done great here. Why now have you decided to do that, right? Think about it. If I came to you and I said, hey, I'm gonna change your job description, I got some other things that I want you to do, what's the first question that you're gonna ask me outside of, am I gonna get some additional money? What's the next thing you wanna know? You wanna know why. Why are you changing my job? I've been doing my job the way I've been doing my job for a long time. Am I not doing, so when you think about this work and you want buy-in, and you think about resistance to the work, a lot of times resistance comes from a place of not, I don't think it's important. I don't know why it's important. I don't know why we're doing it. So when you have resistors, if you can't articulate why this work is important and articulate it in a way that it aligns with what that person's roles and responsibilities are on campus, you're going to get pushback. That's why I say it's important to tie all of your work back to your strategic plan, because ultimately everything that we're doing within our organization should tie back to the strategic plan. Everybody within your institution should be able to see themselves somewhere in that strategic plan. And I don't mean from the perspective of, let's have an equity goal where we say we want to hire more diverse faculty and staff. You want to hire more what? To do what, and how are you going to retain them? Right? So you need to really think about how do we begin to embed language in a way that people can understand and people know why we're doing what we're doing. So the very first thing that you should do before you start creating committees or implementing things is, what is our why? Like, and you should have a uniform why. It's okay to have a personal individual why, and you should, but what's your institutional why, that as a institution, we have a unified why that everybody is communicating. No matter who you ask, everybody can go back to that thing about why we're doing what we're doing. The next thing that you really need to be thinking about is commitment. What does the commitment look like from a leadership perspective, from a money perspective, from a time perspective, right? A lot of times when we implement change, we like a bottom-up approach. Let's get the people that's boots on the ground in and understand it and let them kind of push this. Diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging in 2024 is too controversial, too political, and too uncomfortable for it to be a bottom-up approach. It has to be a top-down approach, right? Your leadership has to communicate to your institution why this is important, why we are doing that, and they can communicate that through quantitative data, qualitative data. I say utilize both. Give me numbers and give me stories and why this is important. And give me that from a perspective of students, faculty, and staff, all of my stakeholders. But your leadership really should be articulating to campus why this is important. I'm the chief diversity officer for my campus, but it is not my job to sell diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. It's my job to make sure we do what we say we're going to do. It's the president's job to communicate to the campus why this is important. Thankfully, I work at an institution where I have that level of support, and she does communicate those things, right? And then I support her in the ways that I need to support her in articulating that message. The other thing is around money. We know as a society, as individuals, as organizations, we don't spend money on things that we don't think is important. So put some money behind it. I think the issue when it comes to money, though, we get so caught up in, I need a budget. I don't have a budget. Everything in majority, 90% of what we're doing as institutions impacts equity and access for students. A lot of the initiatives and the programs and things like that. It's an activity that I have because I do coach colleges from an equity coach perspective. I have them do, one of the first activities they do for me is initiative mapping. I have them map out all of the initiatives that they are working on campus. I ask them to tell me what are all the goals, the outcomes, objectives, what is the funding source, who is a part of the committee, and we outline it, all of that. We do that to see, one, where's their overlap, right? Where's their overlap in what we're currently doing? Two, where is there opportunity for me to leverage funding from different spaces to be able to do this work? I mentioned earlier, my equity steering committee is co-chaired with the CFO. So in my mind, I don't need a budget. The person that operates the entire funding model for the institution sits on my committee. So we have those conversations about where money can come from that perspective. So don't get so caught up in that you need a line item. There are many programs and initiatives that we are working on campus that impact equitable outcomes, right? And close equity gaps. So how do we begin to leverage those dollars to accomplish our goals? The other thing is about time. Don't tell me something is important and then don't give me time to do it. We don't spend a lot. We'll say, hey, you need to do this, or this professional learning is important, or we need to assess this data, or we need to do this. But then when it comes to the time, well, you're going to have to figure out when you're going to do it. Then we wonder why things don't get done, or then we wonder why things don't get done in the way that we would like them to have gotten done. So when you're thinking about commitment, don't vocalize. Don't just vocalize to me that it's important. You need to demonstrate through action that it's important. Tell me how I can leverage dollars to accomplish our equity goals for a campus. Give me time to really assess data and be able to tell a story that I can explain to any group or any population. Give me time to build capacity and build a foundation with people to even be able to do this work, right? Sometimes we just throw a committee together and say, hey, we throw a committee together and say, hey, go do this work. And what I challenge people to think about is, are you creating a committee that is really a glorified event planning committee, but just with a DEIB focused? Or do they have real goals and objectives and things that they are working towards that is going to promote change within your institution. Which takes me to my next slide, which is around identifying a team. So once you've identified your why and kind of thought about, hey, this is our commitment, this is how we're going to do the work, who is going to do the work? Because I do not think that it is the role of one individual person on a campus to do this work. In my opinion, it is the role of everybody, but you have to start somewhere. You have to get to a place to be able to move the work forward. So is that identifying a team. Like I mentioned that I have an equity steering committee, and then I have another level, which is called equity champions, which I'll talk a little bit about. But with my team, we identify what are the goals of this team? What are your roles and responsibilities as a committee? This is not a committee that we just come together and we talk about all the problems and we don't ever solve anything. Like, what are your goals and your objectives? What are the ground rules for engagement with this team? How do we begin to build that psychological safety where we can have conversations and be transparent and really talk about the issues without people getting offended or feeling like they need to be on the defense when they have conversations, right? Do the I work. You cannot lead this work if you haven't done some self-work and built some capacity on just the foundational knowledge around DEIB and what that looks like within an organization. When you're thinking about your members, when I talk about leadership being involved, is not just leadership vocalizing this is important, but they are also engaged in the work across campus. So from my perspective, they should be a part of that committee. They should be a part of identifying how this work is going to be and how we're going to implement this. Make sure that you have faculty, that you're representing your faculty, may it be your adjunct faculty or your full-time faculty, but that you have adequate representation. You have adequate representation from staff across the entire campus, not just student affairs, the business office, continuing education, all of the different areas that we may have on our campus. How do you get them engaged? Institutional research, so that you can always have that data available to you. Someone from your faculty senate, someone from various areas. Just think about your campus and think about how you service students, how you service the community, and who are those key people that need to be a part of it. And then how do you include student voice and how do you include students as a part of this? So for us, we invite our SGA president and other student leaders to our equity steering committee meetings once a month. They can come at the beginning of the meeting, kind of give us some updates from a student perspective, talk about challenges, things like that. So think about who's going to do this. You need to do it. You've kind of talked about the why. You've gotten the commitment. Now who's going to do it? Once you get to this space, now you need to begin to assess things, right? Do you do climate surveys on your campus? And if you do, is it just for students or is it for faculty and staff? What kind of climate surveys do you do, right? For me, I like real climate surveys, and people always say, well, Keisha, what is a real climate survey? An example is, for most of our climate surveys, we will say, do you feel a sense of belonging at Davis and Davie on a scale of 1 to 5? And I might give you a 4 or 3, or hey, I might even give you a 5. But what if you ask me that question in a different way? What if you ask me, as a person of color, do you feel a sense of belonging at Davis and Davie? As a person with a disability, do you feel a sense of belonging at Davis and Davie? As a person from the LGBTQ plus community, do you feel a sense of belonging? I promise you will get different results than if you just ask that general question. But see, we don't like to ask things that's going to make us uncomfortable. Then we make the assumption that if we ask the question, that the people that we're asking, we are making them uncomfortable by asking the question. No, we're trying to get to the root cause and the root issues that we are trying to address. And asking surface level questions is never going to help you accomplish what you're truly trying to accomplish. The other thing is, when you're reviewing your data, what is your data saying and what is it not saying, right? When you think about your data and how you're reviewing the data, make sure that you are getting voices from people. The example that I like to give is, in North Carolina, we have a Men of Color initiative where we receive funding from the General Assembly to give our colleges funding to do things for men of color. It's called the Minority Male Success Initiative. And so, let's say, hey, when we first looked at your data, it showed that men of color were not persistent and completing at the same rate. You know, you implemented some things, and then you began to see that there's this increase of retention and completion of your men of color. And you're like, yes, we are closing equity gaps. But let's say you do a focus group with those men, or during your exit survey, you have a conversation, and then you begin to ask those belonging questions and inclusion question and those experience questions, right? Because we like outcome disparities, but we also need to pay attention to those experience disparities that people have. And so in those focus groups, what you get back is that, yeah, I graduated, but it was horrible at your institution. I dealt with this discrimination while I was there. I was treated like this, I was treated like that. And for many of our marginalized populations within our institutions, they just deal with stuff just to finish, just to get out, right? And so do you really feel like you close equity gaps if they persisted and completed, but they had horrible experiences? The thing that I challenge you people to think about from an experience disparity perspective is that one student is a return on investment for your institution. Yes, we talk about good experiences that we have places, but we talk a lot about bad experiences that we have at places. So if, let's say you have that one student who had a bad experience, think about their circle of life and everybody in their circle of life and how many people they're going to tell within the community that that place isn't the best place to go to get an education. How many people have you potentially will not get off of one student? So that's why it's important to make sure that you're getting qualitative and quantitative data. Does your mission, vision, values address DEI? Is it outlined in your strategic plan? Are you looking at your policies through an equity lens, or your procedures or initiatives or strategies that you are implementing? What is your public facing pieces saying about the college, right? If I look at all of your public facing pieces, that's one of the things, like when I do with a needs assessment, remember I told you that sense of belonging comes from billboards, websites, what's in the community, what's on your shirts, all of those things. What message are you communicating to folks on your campus? One of the activities that we did here at Davidson and that I do with colleges is an environmental scan. And basically is we're scanning our environment to see what message we're communicating. When we first started our work, we identified that all of our focus was going to be on students of color because our data showed that students of color were not persistent in completing. And so when we did that environmental scan, we looked through the lens of a student of color. If I was a student of color, what do I see? What don't I see? Who do I see? What's on the walls? All of those messages. And so one of the things that came back was that in our old health sciences building in the nursing area, they had all of the nurses that had graduated, but they had like an old class, like from 1960, 1970. And so when you walked through the hall, what you saw was a whole bunch of white women on the wall. So if you're a student of color or even a male student, what are the potential messages that are being communicated? Now, the intent was to celebrate and showcase all of the people that had graduated from the nursing program. But let's say you take a student of color, first gen person, in community college here in North Carolina, nursing is a limited enrollment program. And for many of us, you can't just get into nursing, right? There are some requirements. And so if you have a student that's coming who already kind of felt like, I don't know if I belong, and then they go into a building and they see only people that don't look like them on the wall, what messages are we communicating, right? So those are the type of things when you think about what is your public facing pieces saying. When you think about your policy, why does the policy exist? What forces are driving the policy? Who does the policy impact and who is the policy benefiting? Are there individuals and or communities that will be disproportionately and negatively affected by this policy? Does this policy perpetuate or help to dismantle historical, legal, or other barriers set in the past, right? So when we're thinking about the policies that we implement, the first thing I'll ask somebody is, why are you implementing this policy? What's the purpose? What are you trying to achieve based off of implementing this? Okay, now by you implementing this, what is the potential negative consequence for a marginalized student or any other student if we implement this policy, right? The next thing is really kind of identifying your goals. I talked about the team. So you identify your goals for your team. Like what is this team going to work on? How will you roll out the work? How will you assess the work? But then also, what are your goals for your institution? What's your focus? You know, what does assessment look like? How will you track your progress? How will you know if you're improving things? Based on the data, what is likely to get worse, stay the same, or get better if we focus on this thing? You know, what's the potential cost if we don't address these things right now? Also, what factors will make it difficult for us to even progress in this space, right? So really kind of thinking through when you're identifying an equity challenge or the things that you want to accomplish, is not just saying, hey, let's fix this thing. Okay, yeah, let's fix this thing, but what's the potential things that are going to make us not be able to fix this thing, right? Recruit other stakeholders. How do you get other people involved in the work beyond that committee? And so I've mentioned several times that we have equity champions. And equity champions are people on our campus that have self-identified that they think this work is important and they want to be a part of accomplishing our institutional goals. And so we put them in groups and working groups. The way that we break down our work here, and it really the way that I recommend across the state that work is broken down, is we have 7 areas of discovery, because you can't fix everything right now. You have to pick something, 1 or 2 things, and say, hey, this is what we're going to focus on for the year. And so with that, our equity champions kind of help us do that. So one of our areas of discovery is faculty and staff retention. And so we did an overhaul of our recruitment processes and our retention processes, but all of that research was done through the equity champions, and then they made recommendations to the equity steering committee, and we probably implemented about 75% of what was recommended. The next is around capacity building and making sure that you're doing that eye work, that you're embedding emotional intelligence, that there's foundational knowledge for those that are going to be leading this work, that you all are kind of putting yourself on the same playing field. What does training look like for your campus when it comes to capacity building and the work that you're doing, how you're going to communicate the why and why this work is important. Then you begin that planning process, right? What does it look like to kick off this work? Define your terms, identify what those terms mean, determine how you will do the work. What does the work look like when it's done effectively? What are the resources that you're going to need? What is the communication plan? One of the things that I feel like we do not do well as institutions of higher education is communicate what we're doing. People struggle to know what is going on campus. So how can you regularly communicate with people? From a state and local perspective, strategies that we have for success, I mentioned the Equity Coach Academy, where I train people across the state to do this work. It is a 1-year program where I have a curriculum that they do in the fall semester, and then the spring semester, I work with them to implement this on their campus. We have from that group of people, I have equity coaches. And so when we have state projects and state initiatives, I assign equity coaches to make sure that the work that those colleges are doing are being viewed through an equity lens. I developed a legislative toolkit for North Carolina to be able to continue this work under the legislation and ensure that they are operating within the legislation. I have also developed an inclusive excellence framework that is shared out to all 58 community colleges on how to do this work that really goes over a lot of this stuff. And from a local perspective, we heavily use our equity champions. And just to kind of close this out, thinking about overcoming challenges. So think about your leadership and how they are either going to be able to mobilize or not mobilize people to do this work. One of the things that I challenge people to really think about is change in general on your campus. What does change look like on your campus minus diversity, equity, and inclusion? How do things get rolled out? Are people held accountable? Do we have uncomfortable conversations? Are we comfortable dealing with conflict? Many times, if you don't like having uncomfortable conversations, you already are not holding people accountable, and you don't have a good conflict resolution process, it's going to be hard to lay DEI on top of that. Figure out how to navigate resistance to change, and then make sure you're measuring impact and sustaining momentum. Key takeaways as you lay the groundwork: You define the problem, you create the solutions, and then you sustain and scale. Equity is not the journey. It's the journey, it's not your final destination. So take time to really figure out what's the best way to do this work on your campus. So now I will leave it to questions. And from a feedback perspective, if you can scan that QR code and give me some feedback, that will be wonderful. But I will open it up for questions for the last 4 minutes we have.
Thank you so much, Keisha Jones. Thank you for sharing your experiences and letting us look at equity from institutional perspective as well, because some of the things you mentioned, all of them were important, but especially the one you said about why we are doing things. We need to question this first, right? Because it helps a lot when we remember. We already know actually, but if we remember why we're doing things, then it will also bring some strategies and some, plan with it. So thank you for reminding that. So I'm looking at the chat to see if we have any questions. And Dr. Ellen says that adult learning theory states that adults need the why or they will rebel, right? So true. And feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to elaborate on that. And Elizabeth mentioned, thank you. I so appreciate the breakdown of this process in a way that feels manageable and practical, as well as the importance of capacity building, starting with I work. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Awesome presentation. And very much needed in this setting and beyond. The struggle is real. Thank you, John. Yes. So thank you so much again, Keisha, for your wonderful presentation. So our next session will start in 12 minutes. So you can stay in this room where, as you know, we are using only one Zoom room today. So feel free to stay here. The next presentation is about sharing global equity practices. It's going to be a poster session. So you can stay in this room. And we're going to start in 10 minutes. And Kevin, do you want to add anything else?
No, that I just, the recording of this session will be put on our YouTube channel, and I put the 2024 playlist in the chat, and I will also add the overall account for the Peralta Online Equity YouTube account.
Thank you so much.